Hello and welcome to the Basketball Addicts podcast. All right. So today we're going to be talking about the 10 players, who would have been the 10 players who would have been the greatest if they wouldn't have gotten hurt by injuries sooner in their career. Um so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to be asking if this guy is the greatest before we talk about him. Just to intro each player, and that's the plan for today. Are you ready for this, Chris?
Let's get into it. Let's get into it. Let's get into it.
All right. And number 10. Okay, this you guys can tell me if you think this guy is the greatest player, would have been the greatest player if it wouldn't have gotten hurt, and it's Greg Oden. And Greg Oden was a power player at center at Ohio State. I looked over his tape again, and it was special power and athleticism and good fundamentals in the post. The body he reminds me of is Moses Malone. So now you can kind of understand where I'm coming from with the power and the athleticism and where he could have been dominant at the center position offensively, especially the way they were playing back then, like 2004, 2005, 2006. Um, so he's number 10 on this list for us, and he has really special traits, and he would have been really, really solid. He could have been the best center in the league. That what his potential was without the injuries. So, what are you thinking about Greg Oden here, Chris?
Yeah, his career was cut short by injuries, as most people on this list. And I just think that he did have that ability. I would say that I wouldn't say maybe the greatest player. I would say that he could have been great for his time because I feel like
Mm-hmm.
eventually, because the way the NBA evolved so quickly, I
Mm-hmm.
feel that sooner or later, he would eventually fade it out, kind of like a Dwight Howard. Like Dwight Howard is still like he can still play, but he's not going to
Mm-hmm.
be as dominant because the ball because you have to move back because you have to card everybody at 3 point. Everybody and their mom can shoot a 3 point shot now. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
centers used to just be banging down low. That's why Dwight Howard was able to be so effective. Shaq was able to be so effective. But now that you have to pull these
Mm-hmm.
centers out, now you're shooting all these threes, and it leaves the
Mm-hmm.
hole open. I mean, like
Yeah.
I feel like if the game was played through the center for longer, then I could
Mm-hmm.
see possibly becoming like the greatest center because he did have that potential. But I think that he would
Mm-hmm.
just been great for the time period.
Yeah. Yeah. He is. He was in the same draft class as Noah, Joakim Noah, and Al Horford. So that's
Yeah,
kind of what his age range is. He was just younger.
yeah,
Funny enough, they played each other in the national championship. Joakim Noah and Al Horford beat Ohio State in that year
yeah.
with back-to-back titles. Okay, so we go ahead and transition to the next guy who would have had the greatest career if it wasn't getting hurt. So let's see if you guys think this guy is the greatest player. And his name is Amari Stoudemire. Amari Stoudemire was a special athlete, 6'9", 6'10", power forward. He's with the Suns doing great things, and then he gets hurt a few years into his career. Athletic gifts, can handle the ball, finish around the rim. And honestly, if he would have stayed healthy, he would have been a phenomenal small ball center for whoever thought of using him that way. So in New York, if he would have been healthy with Melo, he would have been the number two on those teams. So there's a lot of things because a guy like that never really developed his skill set. So we never got to see his cross between whatever his maybe a mid range game, a mid post game, and his athletic gifts are like 28, 29 because he was developing skill, but we never got to see those two things converge, and it would have been special with Melo. So, what do you think about our Amari Stoudemire here, number 9?
Amari Stoudemire. I mean, I remember his Phoenix days. I remember his New York days. I don't really. I mean, I know his power. You know what I mean? He was starting to become
Mm,
skilled, but I really don't see too much of a difference. I mean, like I know that there was an injury and things like that. Because I remember watching the New York Knicks. I remember watching the Suns. So it's just like I wouldn't like. That's another player where I kind of like. I don't quite agree. It's just like I feel that he was gonna max out where he was gonna max out, but maybe just maybe I feel that if he didn't have to do that 60 seconds or less offense, maybe he could have had a little bit more longevity and we could have seen something. But I feel like outside of that, I mean, like, it probably was just a situation that just really just wore on his body. Um,
mm,
but yeah, like I said, I can't really draw too many differences between the two because I feel like he was still pretty decent in New York. I mean, like he was a starting center for them. So I feel like, I mean, like yeah, he was like, not, I wouldn't even say he was a shell. I think he wasn't completely like, I mean, we didn't see like 100% of Amari, maybe like 80, 85, maybe 90, but
Mhm.
it still wasn't. I mean, like the game was just getting away at that point, you know, because the game was getting away. It was starting to go back into like, okay, maybe, you know, develop a mid range shot. Maybe that would have extended his career a little bit too, you know?
Mhm. Kind of like Blake Griffin.
Yeah.
Blake Griffin developed skill as he got older, and there was a point in
hmm
time where he was more skilled and athletic.
But you got to think like
Yeah.
Amari has a big body. You know what I mean? He was kind of like a really
Mhm.
modern center. So like if he would have
Yeah.
if he could have been like more Yao than Dwight, he could have. I mean, you know what I mean? Then he probably could have you know prolonged his career even after the
Mhm.
injury. You know, like what do all the like the great players do as they get older? They add more to their game. LeBron isn't a great 3-point shooter, still not the best 3-point shooter, but he shoots more. You know what I mean? So he doesn't have to
Mhm.
go down low and bang bodies so much because he's getting older. And, you know, that same
Yeah.
thing. Like as you're getting older, you add more to your game. I mean, like I just feel that he was just too much on like, okay, I have power, I have to do this around the rim instead of trying to evolve his game.
Mhm. I could see it. Yeah. All right, we're gonna transition to number 8, another guy, and let's see if you guys think is this guy would be, in your opinion, the greatest player of all time to get hurt by injuries, and like how great his peak would have been. And he's Connie Hawkins. Connie Hawkins played in the '60s and '70s. 6'8", great athlete, had mid-range skill. His story is that in college at Iowa, they wrongly accused, like caught him, determined that he was cheating games. Apparently the people were saying that he was betting on games and like helping throw games for people to make money while getting money for that. So they
Mm.
wrongly uh accused him and like put that on his name for the NBA. So the NBA didn't let him in until he was 27. He was eventually proven not guilty of that, and that's when the NBA let him in. There was like $1 million settlement or something like that for not letting him in the NBA. So he was in the ABA for a little while, averaging like 28, 29, 30 points per game until like 25, 26. And then he gets to the NBA, he's averaging around 26. He wins, and he does really well in Phoenix for a few years before his athleticism fades away. But the special thing about him is 6'8", and he's a freak athlete at like 25 in the ABA, doing Dr. J like stuff. But most people don't really know him, and at that time frame most of those great athletes will go through a stage between 22 and 26 where it's their peak of their careers, because they're playing 82 games, they're playing full games. Back then they weren't playing like 60 games of the season resting their legs, and they didn't have modern medicine. So these great athletes usually faded out quicker in their careers because they just didn't have modern medicine. So, and different standards, because they were expected to play like 46, 45 minutes a game. um so we didn't really get to see his real peak because he wasn't in the league. He was chilling on his couch. I mean, the fact that guy was not in the ABA until 25 and then averages 31, 32, coming off the couch, tells you how special he is. Okay, so Connie Hawkins, man, Connie Hawkins. That's number
Now
8.
that
What do
one
you
I
think about
can
him?
Now that's one I could like kind of get behind a little bit because a lot of these guys, you know, on this list as I'm seeing is like, you know, it's like injuries you stop their career from truly taking off. But like I could see where it's just wear and tear and the fact that he wasn't allowed to play until he was 25
Mm-hmm.
years old. So that kind of makes a difference. You know what I mean? Considering that, like you said, we don't have modern medicine. We didn't have 40-year-old Kobe. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't possible then. You know what I mean? Like 37-year-old LeBron. That's not, I mean, 38, 37, 30, 30, 37, 38, 37.
LeBron's 38, probably 37,
38
38.
year old LeBron, you know that's not
Yeah.
possible. Then I mean, like these
Yeah.
guys have a quick peak and then a fast decline, and
Yeah.
especially when you're jumping all day, every day, because you're playing 82 games and you're jumping high, you're coming down. You know what I mean? that athleticism quickly fades. If you know,
Yeah.
because you're not taking care of your body, you're probably out. You're probably going to go play a basketball game. You know what I mean? Drop 30, go to the club. You know, you're smoking cigarettes. You're probably doing drugs. You know, things like that. That's just the time period. You know what I mean? So,
Mm-hmm.
especially 60s, 70s, those are the time period. So you know, these are athletes. Don't get me wrong, great athletes, great basketball players, but it's just the time period in which they decide, in which he played the game, and where it's just, you know, where it wasn't possible to get the kind of treatments, to get the kind of medicines, and to get the kind of regimen, and to keep it, and like, you know what I mean, to keep people out of the party scene so much during, when you have back to backs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That
That's a
all
good
takes
point.
a factor.
Yeah.
Nobody's telling
Yeah,
them
I
what to
agree.
eat. You know what I mean? Nobody's telling them what to eat, what to drink, things like that. Like, no, that's not really implemented at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. That's a good point, Chris. All right, you ready to transition to number 7?
Yeah.
Number 7, you guys can, make the debate, see if you guys think this is the greatest guy that would have been in the NBA if it wasn't for injuries or other circumstances. And his name's Arvydas Sabonis. It's Domantas Sabonis' father. So this
Mm.
guy didn't get into the NBA until around 33. He played in Europe most of his youth and had knee issues. And you may be thinking, Jason, what you may be thinking, Jason, how are you going to find tape on a guy like this? Well, this is the godly sense of YouTube. I was able to find 20-year-old, 24-year-old tape of this guy. And, another supporting fact is Charles Barkley has said before on TNT that Sabonis was the better player. And he played against him, when he was playing for the Dream Team and like overseas and stuff like that. So, that's a supporting argument for this. But at 20, it wasn't a full clip, but I did see him break a backboard. So, that's first things first. This guy's like 7'1". At 24, he's a bull. 7'1", huge. Like, he's strong, big guy, not a great mover, not going to be a great defender other than rebounding at a high level and shot blocking at the rim. But where he's special is he reminds me of Jokic, but mid-range, where it's not like the ball handling, but he is a top 5, top 3 passer of all time at the center position. It's ridiculous. Like, one time, it was insane. One time, man, I was watching this guy play, and he gets a pass underneath the basket, and there's a guy on the right wing open. And it's not even like a full catch, feet hit the ground and pass. No, it's like midair, goes from left hand, catches the ball and passes it like in flow. Things that you see like Chris Paul do, that LeBron James do, that it's like, oh my gosh, it's so special. I see this guy do. And you see him throw a few passes. I was like, man, how did he fit that pass? How did you see that guy? That was ridiculous. Like, it's like it is Bill Walton Jokic ish, where he's a passing maestro who never got to play with athletic guards in the NBA and have spacing and have talent around him. Good post player, good post skill, big human being, has a mid range shot. I mean, he basically stands in the mid range the whole time, and his mid range shot is butter. Where it's like Jokic, where he could just space out and give you space and pass and be efficient and be a good basketball player. Like it's a guy who would have been special in the NBA, and he had knee injuries and stuff like that at like 29, 30, and like most of his time is playing in Europe, playing in Russia. So not a ton of tape, not a ton of well, actually I got to see a full game, so I have plenty of tape, but this guy is special, man. It could have been a big what if. This guy could have been really special. What do you think about that?
Arvydas Sabonis. Let's see. I wouldn't. I guess I'm just like the guy who's just like, you're like, yeah, and I'm like, no. Like, that's how I feel on this podcast right now. But I'm gonna say, like, I wouldn't say he's the greatest what if story. I understand skill, I understand ability, you know what I mean? I understand you're 7'1" and you're doing this, like, that's amazing. Like, I'm not gonna ever, diminish that. But I feel that what we do as Americans, right? We put a lot of emphasis on things that come from us. Meaning that we're like, oh, he didn't get into the NBA, so, we never got a chance to see truly what he was capable of, you know what I mean, against our level of talent.
He was in the
Not
NBA
saying
when he was
you, but
33.
you
He
know what I
was in the
mean?
NBA when he was 33 and for the Portland
Yeah.
Trailblazers. It's just
But you get what
age.
I'm saying? Like we didn't see like the
Mhm.
younger, you know what I mean? So we never seen him against our level of talent, you know what I mean? He played against the highest level, but as an older player, you know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
we tend to, as Americans, make it seem like what we have is better than everybody else's, but that's not necessarily true. I would say that the NBA is in a different, level, is on a different level. But a lot of those players, in the Euro leagues have developed greatly. You know what I mean? That's why they're coming here and they're dominating. Look at Luca, look at Dirk, look at
Giannis,
Giannis, these guys from Greece and
Jokic. Yeah.
Jokic. You know what I'm saying? So like the Euro League, the Euro League is like going crazy. So we can't like say like I wouldn't say it's a what if story because like just because he didn't get into the NBA at a young age, I feel like he still got a chance to play at the highest level at the time. You know what I mean? At one of the highest levels. So I feel like he
Yeah, but I
still
guess
got
we
his
didn't really get to
opportunity.
see it. We didn't get to see it.
Yeah, I get that we didn't get to see it, so I guess it would be
It would have been like
because
a
it was over.
what if
Go
he
ahead.
was dropped on the Boston Celtics and he would have been the center for those teams with Larry Bird, Kevin McHale. Like you drop him on some teams that that he adds to that. You know what I mean? That's why it's a what if, because of his gifts. Dear goodness, him and Larry Bird would have carved out teams. Oh my gosh.
True.
Passing brilliance.
True. See, that's why I had to get exactly where you were coming from with your argument, because I was saying like like a lot of times, like I said, like as Americans, like we make it we're very Eurocentric, meaning that we believe that what we have here is the best.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, but there's other leagues out there that are doing it just as well, if not better. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't even. I want to say that maybe we're the standard, but once you have the standard, you're the blueprint, because basketball was invented back in 1925 by Naismith, Dr. Naismith. So we're the originators, but when you have the originators, then you have people who take that blueprint and make it better.
Yeah. He would have been a fantastic fit in so many like motion offenses that involve passing. It would have been like him tearing up teams. Like if he would have gotten into a triangle offense, would have played with Michael, goodbye. Okay? He would have gotten the triangle offense as their center, which is movement and passing and player movement that involves post touches. Look. That team's even better. Okay? Let me tell you something. Like, he didn't play. He was 33. Played with Scottie Pippen on the Portland Trailblazers. Okay, in like 1999, 2000. Okay.
Yeah,
This
I remember
guy,
that.
Yeah. So,
I get it. I get exactly where you're coming from, and on that stance, I can say that he's a great what if story, because I mean, we never got a chance to see what he looked like, playing with with some of those greats in the NBA. But from the other standpoint, it's just like like he did have a career. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
sure.
he got over here later, but he had a career. A lot of these guys got cut short really quickly, but I feel that he had a career.
I guess I see where you're coming from. All right, you ready to hit the next guy?
Yeah.
This is a guy we make fun of a lot in the podcast, but he's earned this spot. So, if you guys want to say, I want to see if you guys think Bill Walton is the greatest. Oh my gosh, this is how great this player would have been if he did get hurt. Bill Walton gets hurt at 26, comes into the league at 22, wins an MVP, wins an NBA championship. Never averages more than 20 points per game, but he's a top 3 passer at the center position of all time. He would be the greatest passer at the center position of all time if it wasn't for Nikola Jokic. Good athlete, much better athlete than you may think. Above average, really good defender at the rim. Really, he's a skilled scorer, but he's just not overly aggressive with it. But we never really got to see him develop, grow, and be like 28, 29. Maybe it grows to be more aggressive, and maybe averages like 25 and 6, 25 and 7, 25, 7 and 10, maybe something like that, where he's dominating the NBA. So Bill Walton is number 6 on our list. What do you think about Bill Walton here?
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one. And I will say
Oh,
that he's a
it
good.
gets nice here. Top five. Top five.
He's
nice.
he's definitely a good what if story. That's a good one. Because that's a guy who truly had his career cut short by injuries. He was you know, like coming in at 22, winning an MVP, winning a championship. You know what I mean? That's special. You know, in your first year. That's really special. And then like really like nagging injuries really just took him out of his prime very quickly. So he didn't last long. So yeah, that's a good one actually. I like. Okay, I'll agree with that one. I'll agree. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Chris has high standards.
Yeah, that's a good one. Me, everything else I can argue, but I can't argue with that one. I like that one.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm not gonna argue with that one. I'll find one to argue with. Don't worry.
All right. The next guy is, let's see if you guys think this is the greatest what if story, maybe how great it would have been if it wasn't for injuries. It's Grant Hill. Grant Hill's number 5 for us. But Grant Hill is special. Grant Hill got hurt at the age 26, could pass the heck out of the basketball, could score, athletic, finish around the rim. Pretty decent defender, had potential defensively maybe if he wouldn't have been carrying his team offensively, because the Detroit Pistons sucked after the Bad Boys era. So
they had to.
Yeah, Grant Hill, man. Grant Hill was special. People were talking about him being the guy that passed the torch to after MJ and being in the conversation for that kind of guy. So, what do you think about Grant Hill at 5?
Okay, I can't argue with that one. But I think they had to. You know what I mean? Because I think they made Isaiah sit so they can get Grant Hill, and then I think he was. It was like some weird stuff going on. So I think like it was. I feel that there wasn't. Yeah, they tanked for him. There just wasn't enough knowledge of basketball as we have now and the human body that would have told them like you can't just put the load on a guy every night to perform. You know what I mean? So it's like I feel that they tanked and got him. I feel like he was just in the wrong situation. Had he went to like maybe a better situation, his career could have been prolonged. And that's what this what if is about. Is like, what if he went somewhere else? So like, if he went somewhere else and wasn't like on such a bad team, because they had to tank pretty bad. You know what I mean? To get him to get the first round. But it's just like, had he been on a different team, like we always have like Grant Hill. You know what I mean? But he got hurt and it was a bad injury and it just cut his career short.
Yeah. I agree, Chris. I agree. Are you ready to kick it to the next guy?
Yeah, let's see if I can disagree with this one.
All right, so this is going to be the next guy, and it's going to see if you guys think this guy is the greatest what-if story if he did get hurt of all time. It's Tracy McGrady. He's 4 on our list. He gets hurt at 26 after getting out of Orlando. He's not ever athletically the same, even though he's still a good athlete for Houston. He's still not the superhuman athlete that he was used to be. So for the Houston Rockets, man, he's so highly skilled that he's still a star in the NBA. But he doesn't have that same athletic burst that he does, and because of injuries, and he had so many injuries after this. It was like he's injured all the time, injury problems, can never stay healthy, can never stay on the court. And at like 29, 30, if you look at his stats, he starts becoming a good passer. He passes like 4 assists per game. So he becomes a complete player at like 29 that could have been like a 34 and 4 rebounds a game guy, and could have been leading those Houston Rockets to really great seasons if he wasn't just hurt all the time. So, I mean, so much of this guy's career is just marred by injuries, and nobody really, even Kobe Bryant said that he was him, just taller. Like, this guy's legit. Like, this guy's a legit bucket, but we never really got to see him consistently, and he never really got to, go somewhere with his team, because Yao Ming had similar injury issues. So this is team at care 4.
Well, I found one. So I'm gonna go ahead and disagree with this. Just because I feel that he's if he didn't get hurt, but he went from Toronto, he had a long career, and I think, in my opinion, I feel like he was better for the Houston Rockets than he was with the Orlando Magic. I feel like when his skill picked up is when he became better. But I feel that the injury, right, like as it became like, constantly injured, and the first injury that would had him develop more skillfully was kind of like would we have gotten, a better passer down the line if he didn't get injured athletically? Because I mean, injured, so that because he would have started to develop, rely more on his athletic gifts on the shooting. You have to think that these majority of the players, weren't all around players. There weren't too many guys who could pass, shoot, defend and everything like that. They were like, okay, we have two skills here. We're gonna put some other guy with has different two skills, and we're gonna make a team together. You know what I mean? So like, would he have developed if he could still rely on jumping over people and being athletically gifted? Would he have ever developed
Most people
into
do.
what? In most cases, but this is a what if. We don't know. You know what I mean? So I'm saying, like, would he have developed? You know what I mean? Because that passing came later down the line, but he was already a pretty decent shooter. You know what I mean? He was athletic, so he was with Vince Carter on the Toronto Raptors, but then once he left, he was like, oh yeah, I'm the guy here in Orlando, but the team never quite clicked around him, so he started he had the Grant Hill issue where everything was his fault. You know what I mean? He had to put the whole team on his back, and then they ran him into the ground, and then he got traded to Houston. So he just never wasn't the same player again because of those night in night outs. I have to drop damn near 40 points or we don't win. You know what I mean? Where it became that kind of play, which isn't fun for anybody. So I feel like I would just disagree with maybe the greatest what if, because would he have developed that had he not been hurt? I think the skill was there. You know what I mean? That's just something you work on. But would he have? In order to continuously play as long as he did, he would have to develop something that made him a commodity to the teams again. So I think that when he add that passing aspect, that's because he was, he was older, didn't have the athleticism anymore, considering injuries and age.
I could see it. Alrighty, so we're gonna go ahead and transition to the next one. I don't think you're gonna find any flaws in the next three, especially this one, because I know you love the next one. So this up to you guys. If you guys think this next guy is the greatest what if story of all time, this guy would have had the greatest career if he didn't get hurt by injuries. His name's Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose is number 3 on our list. Man gets hurt at 23, already has an MVP, superior athlete. Wasn't highly skilled at that point in time, but we do get to see him put on some skill like 30-31, where he's playing in the NBA right now, and he's a lot more skilled from the three-point line and stuff like that. He was never a great passer either, but he developed into a pretty solid one with the age, so there's room for growth with his athletic gifts, so he could have been a really special point guard. So he's number 3 on this list. This top 3 is loaded. This guy could have been a top 40, top 35 player of all time type of guy. Top 50 if it wasn't for the injury. So let me see what you think here. Derrick Rose, number 3.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that one. I can't, because Derrick Rose was at the peak of his game. I mean, the youngest MVP is like that Chicago's Bulls team was the best in the East. Had possibilities to win championships had he not been hurt. Because he was playing the best basketball of probably his career. A lot of my rebuttals have been like, oh, he was able to still play decently at an older age, but that's not necessarily true for Derrick Rose, because he broke his ACL. Sprained his ACL like 4 times, 2 times both legs. Like that does a lot to you. You know what I mean? Consistently being hurt all the time, that does stuff for you mentally. That does stuff for you, athletically, especially because he was so explosive. That explosiveness. I guess be more careful. We will never see Derrick Rose drive to the basket like he did in 2011. We'll never see that ever again. But then he wasn't that great of a shooter either. But you could rely on him in moments. So. But he was just jumping so high and landing so awkwardly. So I feel that if he had possibly the right training on how to land and not so much of a street ball outlook on basketball, then I feel that he could have prolonged his career and he probably could have been one of the greatest players of all time because he had that potential. Okay, so look, there was AI, right, who crawled. So he walked so that Derrick Rose could run, and then Russ came afterwards. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just that type of guy, that level of guy. So I can't disagree with that one at all because we've seen it.
Yeah. All right. Let's transition to the top 2. The top 2, these guys have to be good to be kicking Derrick Rose out of the way. So let's see if you guys think this is the greatest. Old heads will agree with me. Okay, old heads will understand where I'm going with this one. Let's see if you guys agree with that. This guy is the greatest player of all time. Would have been the greatest player of all time, but got hurt by injuries in that category. And his name is Ralph Sampson.
Yes.
Yes, got hurt at 26. Rookie year, he's averaging 22. Coming out of college, Bill Russell saying he's going to be the greatest center of all time. Okay, let me talk to you about Ralph Sampson here. Greatness at the center position comes from great athletic traits. Great traits where you're so dominant physically before we even start talking about skill that you can become one of the greatest centers of all time. Look at Will Chamberlain. Will Chamberlain's athletic, dominant freak. Looks like the Flash running up and down the floor. Strong, athletic, great body. Great, 7'1". Shaq. Before we even talk about skill, he's huge. 7'1", 3 something. Built out of granite. He's got good feet for his size. Special. Hakeem Olajuwon. Ballerina for feet. Ballerina for feet. Great mover with the basketball. Okay, that guy has a lot of potential. Let's talk about Ralph Sampson here. Oh, Kareem's 7'2", good athleticism, great, good arms, highly coordinated basketball player. Okay, let's talk about Ralph. Ralph Sampson's 7'4", moves like he's 6'9". All right, good mover for 7'4". You have to understand that 7'4" guys don't move like that. 7'4" guy. He moves like Victor Wembanyama. He moves like that kind of guy. Like it's a lanky, good mover. So you pair a guy that can move well with a guy that has a butter mid-range shot, a really solid post fadeaway, good footwork in the post, good hook shot that's really, really, really reliable, good ability to play defense and move around and be a shot blocker at the rim and rebound and run in transition and do stuff like that. Like I saw him run in transition sometimes. I was like, wow, I can't believe he can move like that. Like he can handle the ball sometimes. He doesn't do it very often, but like he's highly, highly skilled with all those gifts. The man came in his rookie year averaging 22. Okay, this is not the 60s. He's playing in the 80s, right? He's playing with Hakeem Olajuwon. You think he would have had a better stat line by himself on the Seattle Supersonics or some random team that didn't have anybody else? This guy would have had 25, 26 if he wasn't playing with Hakeem. Hello? He's playing with Hakeem. He gets hurt at 26. We never get to see his full peak. But I mean, guys like Bill Russell said he would have been the greatest center of all time. That was his potential coming out of college. Like, this guy's ridiculous. He is definitely, this guy could have been the top 10 player of all time. This guy could have been the next Kareem. Because Kareem had those gifts where he was so much taller than everybody else. And he may not be Wilt or Shaq where he's so dominant physically that he's special, but where he's so much taller, lankier, great footwork, has unstoppable moves like a great post fadeaway, like a great hook shot like Ralph Sampson, where nobody can block it because he's tall. But he was 2 inches taller. He was 7'4". It could do all those movement things. He was not a stick in the mud. It was very impressive. This guy could have been a top 10 player of all time. This guy could have been a top 5 center of all time. And this is special right here. Ralph Sampson is special. He got hurt at 26, man. Go watch him. Yeah, let's see what we think.
Easily a top 10 player. I cannot disagree with this one. I can't find any flaw in this at all. Because just off what you said, the very first opening statement, Bill Russell, right, said that this guy has the ability to be the greatest center of all time. Coming from the guy who has 11 rings, who, in most people's eyes is the greatest center of all time. You know what I mean? So, like, that says something. That speaks to something. When the GOAT of that era, before Shaq, you know what I mean? You're like, damn, he said I'm the greatest of all time. You know what I mean? Like, so you look at this player a lot differently. You have him under a different magnifying glass than most other players.
Yeah.
And it's just so sad that he got hurt. You know what I mean? And then, but he was playing with Hakeem. Like, and you're right. Like, if he was playing on, like, say, like the Cavs of that time, like, he would have had a lot more points. Yeah. The Cavs would have been a great team. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, they were already great. They would have been a greater team. So it's just, I don't know. Like, damn, that's a good one. I can't disagree with. That's a good one.
Crazy. Go ahead.
Grant Hill, Ralph Sampson, those two are really good. Really, really
Yeah.
good one. Really good what-if stories because they had injuries that really like stopped their peak.
Yeah. Yeah. And, Michael Jordan just said a letter to Ralph Sampson thanking him for the injuries because if you don't think Hakeem and Ralph Sampson could have taken some rings away from, if you had two top 10 centers of all time who Hakeem could
Mhm.
play power forward because of movement skills on the same team, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, MJ has less rings. Okay,
Oh,
they
for sure.
beat him and Hakeem, like under the age of 25, beat the Lakers. The Lakers with Magic Johnson, Kareem, James Worthy, Byron Scott, AC Jones, like the whole crew. Like, and MJ's coming into his peak years. Michael Magic Johnson, I meant to say, not Michael Jordan. Magic Johnson's coming to his peak years, and they beat them and go to the Western NBA Finals, and they lose to Larry Bird and the Celtics, but they still got there, right? Like, this team would have been the dynasty in the West after the Lakers were done in like 88, 87 through, Hakeem's winning rings in 95, 94. Like, this would have been a long-term, they would have pushed, because the Bulls' issue is, okay, yeah, you have great defenders, but you have nobody that's above 7 foot other than your center. Like, it was Dennis Rodman and Horace Grant. Like, those guys couldn't guard Hakeem at power forward.
No.
Dennis Rodman's
Yeah.
6'7". He's doing nothing with Hakeem. Who's doing what with Ralph Sampson? The issue with the Bulls defensively was a center can expose them. Okay, put two top 10 centers of all time on the same team, and we're gonna talk about weaknesses, okay? Because I would tell you, all right, that's the kryptonite to the Bulls. It would have been the Rockets. This team would have pushed MJ's. Oh, I'm 6-0. Well, he didn't get to face two superstars on the same team. So he better thank them. He better send a card thanking Ralph Sampson because that man was
You know,
special.
honorable mention of the what if stories. If Ralph Sampson and Hakeem would have been able to play longer, Jordan would have stayed playing baseball. He would never came back. Honorable mention what if story. If Jordan never got Scotty, then Isaiah Thomas would be the greatest player of all time.
Yeah.
Because he would have so many rings.
Yeah. Oh,
Bad Boys team would be the greatest team of all time.
Yeah. I mean, I think they would have beat the Bad Boys. This Houston Rockets team would have been tough with Hakeem and Ralph Sampson. No joke.
Yeah.
No joke. All right.
No, I'm saying, I said if Jordan never got Scotty, then the Bad Boys would be the greatest team, and Isaiah would have the most rings in NBA history.
I don't think they would have lasted. I think it would have gotten 3 or 4, maybe 3. I think they faded out age-wise. I think it would have been the West. The West would have. There was no good team in the East other than MJ until Penny and Shaq start playing together. The East was extremely weak. Like, it was, people really overrate the East in that time frame. It was buds. I mean, you got Patrick Ewing leading a team and Reggie Miller leading a team. Oh my gosh, I'm so scared. Not really. I'm being sarcastic.
No.
So that's beside the point. You ready to kick it to the next guy?
Yeah, you want a drum roll? I got
one. All right. You got a plan?
Yeah.
All right. So this next guy is, let's see if you guys think this is the greatest player of all time, would have been the greatest player of all time without injuries. In our opinion, he is. It's Penny Hardaway. Oh, baby. Let me tell you about Penny freaking Hardaway.
Let's go.
All right, 6'7". Let's talk about the stats. First things first, if you look him up right now, you're going to see that he never scored more than 21 points per game. Well, imagine being a point guard playing with Shaq.
True.
You're not scoring more than 20, okay? Like, Magic Johnson never did, playing with Kareem, never scored more than 22, 23 until he got the keys to the castle, like 87, 86, when Pat Riley told him he needed to score more, and he was getting the keys to the castle scoring-wise. He was never that much of a scorer with Kareem, and that was the way the offense was built, the same way with Penny. But let me tell you about Penny Hardaway. 6'7", freak of nature athletically. I mean, what he does athletically is ridiculous. He's a great body. He gets compared to Magic Johnson a lot. I don't think he's a great comparison to Magic. I think Magic's a better passer, but I can understand where we're coming from because he would have been greatness. Because he has like 2 guard and 3 guard skill scoring wise, where he's got nice mid range game. He's not nice post up game. He can really score great for himself. He can finish around the rim, and he's a great passer. He plays a great pace, and he gets hurt at 25. Gets hurt at
Yeah.
25. 6'7", great passer, great scorer, great defensive potential, great athletic gifts, and we never got to see him at his peak. And honestly, his peak could have been a top 3 point guard of all time. I think his peak
Mhm.
would have been Magic Johnson, Penny Hardaway, Steph Curry are all in the conversation for the top 3 point guards of all time. It wouldn't have been a competition in that 90s, in the early 2000s, which would have been his reign. And could you imagine if Shaq would have stayed? If Shaq would have stayed with Penny, and you have a top 3 point guard of all time with Shaq, Shaq's still getting rings in Orlando, and the time frame of passing the torch is getting moved up here because MJ's Bulls might not be pushing things like always. In '98, these two would have been really close if Shaq would have stayed. But in Orlando, if he would have had the keys to the castle without Shaq, we would have been witnessing a triple double guy, a guy that would have been 26, 27, 28, 29 points per game, talking 10, 9, 8 assists and 10, 9, 8 rebounds, and a great defensive guy. And when a guy's putting up those kind of statistics in the 90s, which is an offense predicated around pass first point guards, because of just his gifts are so ridiculously insane. I'm talking about one of the greatest point guards of all time because his passing ability is going to improve his teammates. That passing ability is the key to the winning ways when it comes to winning championships. So he would have elevated his teammates. And we talk about Scottie Pippen to LeBron James. This would have been LeBron James before LeBron James. This would have been the guy that's 6'7" point guard, attacking the rim, making great passes. The dynamic of, you're going to stop me at the rim. You're going to stop me from passing. I have skill and can score. This would have been LeBron before LeBron. He might not have been as great as LeBron, but it would have been LeBron before LeBron. This is that guy because he was strong. He was built like it would have seemed at 28. He would have been built, fast, athletic, skilled, even more than what he was. Like this guy had a high potential to become the greatest player in the NBA and be pushing Shaq for greatest player in the NBA during that time frame. So this guy could have been top 5, top 10 player of all time. This guy could have been really, really, really special. Trust me, just watch him play. You will understand where I'm coming from on this one. This guy is ridiculous. And this is the guy that would have been the greatest of all time if it wasn't for injuries, in my opinion. Chris, what do you think?
I can't disagree with that. I can't. Because it's really, truly, it was literally injuries. Like, we have to make sense of this, right? You have Penny, 6'7".
Nah.
The last guard that we seen that was tall, could pass, could shoot, and all that was MJ. That was of that height. Even though I'm talking about Magic Johnson.
Yeah, you made the same mistake with me.
Okay, it was Magic Johnson. Even though he couldn't shoot on the level of Penny, maybe like he was more of a better passer, but still, like that's the last time we've seen a tall guard. And then you pair him with probably the most dominant force in NBA history, aka Shaquille O'Neal. The Big Diesel. And this is young Shaq. He's quicker. He's more athletic. He's more dominant, more powerful. And you put these two guys together. These guys had every reason. And when I mean every reason to win rings. Not rings.
That would have been dynasty.
They could have took over the 90s. No team was messing with that team.
Yeah.
At all.
Late 90s, early 2000s would have been domination because Penny's younger than Shaq. Penny's younger than Shaq. So imagine Shaq's timeline. Shaq's still dominating 2004, 2005.
Mm-hmm.
So Penny's still younger than him. So he's still... I completely agree, Chris.
I'm telling you, rings on rings on rings. Go ahead.
And imagine this. When I think about the 2000s... in the late 1990s, after MJ is gone, the East was extremely weak. We have teams like, the Indiana Pacers with Reggie Miller and that team that goes to the NBA Finals. We got Jason Kidd, going with Kenyon Martin and Kiki Vanderway and Richard Jefferson. Like those teams sucked. Those teams were some of the worst NBA Finals teams that we have ever seen in the history in the NBA. Like the East was terrible. It was the Western Conference dominance. Like it would have been like LeBron, where they would have went to so many finals. It would have been a crazy like 8-9 finals, 7-8 finals. Without injuries, and we could have been seeing 5 to 6 rings from those two because Kobe and Shaq don't pair as well. One, they would have aged gracefully together and learned basketball IQ together, but a guy like a guard like LeBron James fits so much better with a big than a Kobe because the passing. Because Shaq's got to beat Kobe with a brick to tell him to pass. Like I read Phil Jackson's book recently, 11 Rings, and like it says multiple times over a multiple year time frame about how selfish Kobe was, how much Kobe had to be like reined in. You can't be taking all the shots. We need Shaq to win. You can't be selfish about it, just trying to get your stats. Let's Penny's a guard, a pass first guy with great scoring ability. That fits so much better with Shaq because they would have had chemistry and fit well. I mean, just look like John Stockton and Karl Malone. Those guys fit well. Great guards and bigs, Magic Johnson, Kareem, Oscar Robertson, Kareem. Like this has been a classic combination for a very long time. I'm not saying Kobe is a terrible player or anything like that. I'm just saying the fit with a guy like Shaq is just not as fluid.
Yeah.
Because Kobe wanted to be Kobe, the star. He didn't really learn how to win until like 2010 when Phil Jackson comes back.
It was too many it guys. Like Shaq's a number one, Kobe's a number one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why the pairing was kind of like off a little bit. But with Penny's a number one, but he's a passer. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit different. Shaq's number one, but he's more dominant down low. They don't attack from the same spaces. So I can't disagree. I can't disagree with this one. I don't want to disagree with it. I never would disagree with this one. Other ones I will. I'll fight tooth and nail. But with those top, I can't disagree with those. I won't. I definitely won't.
Yeah, man. Penny special. 3 guys that barely missed the list is Len Bias, Brandon Roy, and Yao Ming. So those are guys that just barely missed. But yeah,
Hank Gathers.
Oh yeah, Hank Gathers. I forgot about him. He was really good in college. Yeah. Anything else you want to say before? What? Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No.
I was asking for anything else you want to say before we cut it.
I mean, Len Bias, Hank Gathers, those are a little different because like they didn't get injured; they died. So they passed away. So it's like we know they were great, but it was like we never got those are what if stories in themselves though, because but it's more like had they lived, but that's just crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that like in MJ's era, 2 of these guys, just like Penny and Ralph, would have been in MJ's era, but they both get hurt, and neither of them really reached their peak during that time frame, and that would have really hurt his rings and his resume. It would have been like if KD gets hurt. Like KD gets hurt, LeBron has a lot of rings because he doesn't go to Golden State. Okay, like Golden State would have been good, but LeBron probably has 1 or 2 more. Because then it would have been back and forth. Like the Cavs 2017 team is probably the best Cavs team in that time frame, but they just get whooped by the Warriors with KD. But like that team was really, really good. They added upgrades and yeah, man. This is a list, man, that Penny and Ralph are ridiculous. They're just ridiculous. Their upside is ridiculous. So yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's true though. That's definitely a good list because Jordan really just got lucky.
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
yes, he did.
Got really lucky.
A lot of things. He's a lucky man. All right. Do you have anything else to say?
No, I'm all good, man.
All right. Well, this is going to be the end of this podcast. We really appreciate you guys listening to it. Next week and for the rest of the off season, we're going to be heading into more of an NBA regular season talk. So next week we'll be talking about guys that could be breaking out next year, guys that could be breakout stars next year that are young guys, young rising stars in the NBA. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the week after that. We're going to be talking about breaking down each team in the Eastern Conference. And then after that, it's going to be breaking down each team in the Western Conference. Then we're going to start talking about regular season and like what we're going to predict and all those type of things. And we're going to be heading into the actual regular season talk because this is like halfway through the off season. And whenever Kevin Durant gets traded, you guys will hear a special podcast about that. So it's going to be a lot of fun moving forward, guys. And we really appreciate you guys listening, subscribing, liking the podcast. Anything you guys can do to support the podcast is extremely helpful. So we really